All right, everybody, welcome back. Another edition live at Drew's house. Hope everybody was doing well. We are coming in close on Halloween. I just looked to my right, and my wife did got Halloween candy already. Look at this, huh? She put it right next to me. She's trying to torture me. Anyway.
Yeah, the bag's open, I noticed.
There you go. Well, let's introduce our guest, because there he is, Bruce Menin, Newburyport School Committee. How are you, sir? What's going on?
Good. No, just coming back from the Audubon Sanctuary in Ipswich River, where I taught yesterday and took the walkie-talkie home, so I had to bring it back to them.
What a beautiful spot that is.
Oh, it's a great spot. I love it.
I believe you are the first person that we've actually done an interview with that is all buckled up in the car and taking a breather from the road.
I am taking a breather from the road, but better to be safe than sorry, so I'll keep the belt on when I'm parked.
I kind of like it. It's one of the benefits of the Zoom. You can kind of see people in their natural habitats. Here you are in your car.
That's right. For somebody who works as a naturalist teacher, it's perfect. I get to see the whole background. I get to see what you eat, what your behavior is.
Yes. Can I interest you in a Milky Way or a Snickers or not?
No, I'll pass. Thanks.
Very good. Well, every now and then we do this little check-in and see how the school year is going. Now is as good a time as any here as we approach Halloween. How is it going here so far?
I think it's going pretty well. You know, we ended the school year with the kids going full-time, and we began the school year with the kids going full-time, wearing masks, which is how we ended it, how we began. So that part has gone really well. There have been some challenges because the transition to sort of full-time after a year of being both ways, it can be very challenging. So the teachers are working with students are working with each other. Some kids really, really flourished, and some kids found remote very challenging. So we've sort of gone through, the district has gone through doing its assessments of kids, and now we're working on a more individualized basis with kids. But on the whole, kids are delighted to be back in school. As a matter of fact, I spent the morning over at the Knock Middle School doing civic engagement with a group of middle school students who wanted to talk about the dress code. So, and they had really good, tough questions. So I was pleased with that. So yeah, I think it's going pretty well.
What is the dress code at Newburyport? What are the issues?
Well, the issues that the kids brought up were that they had a question about whether the dress code was being applied equally to boys or to girls.
Oh.
We're getting violations that boys weren't for wearing the same things, those kinds of things. And another issue was that what's appropriate and not appropriate can be somewhat subjective. They also felt that, it was a really good conversation. They also felt that they should be able to wear shirts that say anything they want, and they should be able to wear hats in school. So we had a conversation about how that you've sort of evolved, why we did that. I shared my experience of the one time I wore a hat to a school committee meeting that said support disabled veterans. And I got emails from the community saying it's disrespectful. So I learned my lesson. So we talked about that. And if they want to further engage in doing this civic activity, they will meet with their principal. They'll put their argument together and then meet with the superintendent. And if that doesn't resolve the issues, they can make a short presentation to the school committee. And by presenting to the school committee, they're actually presenting to the whole community. So, the teachers at the Knock are working really hard to really push civic engagement, push kids into look at what's going on around the world, around your own world here in your own town.
That must be pretty rewarding in your position to have a group of students, kind of using that freedom of speech and having like a real conversation with adults. That must be kind of a rewarding part of the job, right? You must learn some things.
Oh, I always learn some things. And, in the recent past, in the last 4 or 5 years, we had a presentation from students at the high school about class rank and whether we should have it or not have it, and then how salutatorian and valedictorian get to do the things they do. And that resulted in policy changes. So we really want to encourage students with the superintendent having been here 3 years, particularly the teacher, the principal at the high school and the middle school, it's really about student voice. It's really about giving students the opportunity to work a problem, make some choices, ask some questions, gather information, and then engage in a conversation about it. So, I mean, that's critical.
Have you noticed that there's more, I think I have, I'm a little far removed from it. I don't have kids in the school system, and I graduated, more than 10 years ago from high school. So I'm a little bit, probably not the most connected person in that regard, but the kids that I have talked to, and maybe this is just me growing older, but it seems like a more mature bunch of high schoolers that are coming through. I don't know if that's because maybe there's truth to it. They've lived through a pandemic now, which, that's very unique circumstance. They've had to learn things about themselves, how to get through tough times. I don't know. Maybe that makes you maybe that speeds up the growth. I don't know. Have you noticed that at all?
Yeah. I mean, it's always a balance because, you really want to sort of assess as they get in, how are they academically right now, given the year that was had so many different ways that we were presenting information to them. But they have lived through a pandemic. They've lived through something that I never lived through. And, we ended up having a graduating class last year. That was a great graduating class. And, it was really helpful to get them back in to school. With pandemic precautions, they've certainly learned about rules and things like that. Some were in our control, some were out of our control. So they've had to experience something that we haven't had to experience. And I think that has had, on a lot of kids, that's really helped them see the world and understand how changeable things are, how things happen. When
you talk about going through a pandemic, and you mentioned that it seems like, I forget what you said, 85, 90% of the kids are happy to be back, probably more than that. I've never seen kids so excited to be back at school. I mean, this completely changed the way of thinking. That's must be kind of comical for you as well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because a lot of kids do actually like school, but it was good that we were able to get everybody in at the end of last year, begin to work on the transitions between schools. The kids going to Bresnahan to the Mohlland. We were able to do a lot of that stuff face to face, and I think that gave us a really good start. Most kids. Part of the adjustment is that when you're doing remote, you kind of control your own schedule, which is really kind of nice. They don't have as much control over their schedule anymore. So that's an adjustment. That's an interesting adjustment for them. But on the whole, I would say that they have dealt with this. We always talk about, well, what's going to happen to them social and emotionally, what's going on. And my experience, both on the school committee, as a parent and as a teacher, is the kids are really resilient. They're very resilient, much more so than adults are.
Yeah,
and
coming up.
Yeah. So I think that I agree with you. The kids are happy to be back. They really appreciate things about school that they may not have appreciated before. They took for granted that they could hang out with their friends or eat lunch with them, and then suddenly that wasn't there. And that's, and so they really appreciate that. And the teachers.
Sorry, say that again. I cut you off. Say it again.
No, and the teachers are thrilled. They always wanted. One of the strongest forces for getting back into the classroom full time was the teachers. They really wanted kids back.
So the pluses are obvious. I can understand all that stuff, but I think a lot of people maybe are a little bit cut off from some of the challenges. I just think I caught on to one. Making the school bell, I'm guessing the classroom bell is probably a problem right now. What is this schedule? I got to get used to that.
Yep. Yeah. And to some extent, when they were remote or doing hybrid, there was an approximate schedule and they kept to it and they were in their class groups. But that's one thing. Just socializing with people you don't know. If all the people that you're socializing with are in a classroom of 22 and that's all you see, you're not seeing the 8th graders and the 6th graders. So you have to sort of adjust to that. So I think that those are a couple of the challenges. Some of the kids have really learned skills on focusing and, this is their world. I know people were really terrified about what was going to happen, but these kids were born with cell phones in their hands practically. You know, the electronic thing was nowhere near as daunting for them as it was for the adults, for the teachers, for the parents. So, so I think that they're really resilient, and that's really what I'm seeing.
Is there a negative to that electronics? Because I've been waiting for this to kind of become a thing. It seems like everybody I talk to is like Zoom. Thank goodness for Zoom. We still were able to run classes, all this. It was great in a million different ways. I continued doing my show from my kitchen here and continue to do it from here. All great, all good. There's many pluses. But is there a negative too? I mean, we've been pre-pandemic, we were talking so much about, man, we're so attached to digital. We're so attached to this. People don't get out there and breathe the fresh air. Have you seen some of that?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly cultivates a certain indolence or laziness. You know, if you know, I mean, I'm happy to be doing this in my car. I'm getting out now. You know, so so I think that can be part of it. Technology shouldn't be school. It should be an adjunct to school delivery of curriculum and stuff. You know, on the one hand, we can use technology now to talk to groups in another country. You know, you can get two classes, you know, on either side of the globe talking to each other about stuff. That's really, really amazing. But, you know, equally amazing are the wonderful conversations you have with kids in your own class who don't agree with what you agree. You know, and so, yeah, it can be dangerous. You know, I mean, I see kids all the time. I see adults all the time. You know, they get out of a car, they're waiting for a bus, everybody's on the phone. So, you know, I think they take it more in stride. And a lot of them are really happy not to be looking at screens.
Understood. Bruce Menin, Newburyport School Committee, joining us. Bruce, one thing that always stuck with me, I think was from our first conversation probably a couple years ago. You were a big advocate of like reinventing the classroom idea. And I remember, you know, astrology class, maybe we go look at the stars at night and try to, you know, take that sort of thing. Where has that movement gone? Did the pandemic help that movement maybe draw it back a little?
Yeah, in some ways it did. And the direction that is moving in is that what we call place-based education, that is taking groups of kids out to the Merrimack River to, you know, do research, you know, how saline is the water, what is living in the water. So that's place-based education, that's getting out in the community. The other thing that's coming up now at the high school is that at some point soon, I think our expectation is going to be that every high school student, before they graduate, does an internship in the community. They want to find out about how a hospital works, we'll arrange an internship for them to do that. They want to find out what it takes to, you know, manufacture something, we'll work with them to get internships. So a lot of that is that sort of, you know, getting out in the real world and how you comport yourself in the real world.
Yeah, I don't know if you did internships. I know that's my one thing I tell every college kid. If you can get one in a field that you like, do it, because you learn so much. You meet people that can help you along the way. There's a million things.
Yeah, my son graduated in the spring from UMass Amherst with a degree in natural resource conservation, and he was able to score an internship with Audubon up at Joppa Flats in Newburyport for part of the time. And it's just, it's great. It's good. It's real life experience for these kids. And, you know, it's not at all unusual for these kids to like be identified by the business owners and offered an opportunity to work part-time or something like that.
Exactly.
This is the real world.
That is the real world. It's great advice. I had dinner with a friend of mine the other night, a girl I went to high school with, and, you know, I've known her forever. And we were talking about just how many younger people, I think somebody in her family is how the story started, but was struggling to like leave a tip, just trying to do the math at dinner. And it started this whole conversation of like crap we learned in high school that we haven't used at all in our real life. Right. I'm wondering, is the high school, and I know some of it is state and you have to follow these rules, are the high school kids getting all the tools they need to go to college these days?
You know, it's really interesting because we're in the middle of a strategic planning process to update our strategic plan. It's 5 years old and it's got to be updated. So we're looking at what we accomplished and what we didn't accomplish. And the framework is the district has developed a protocol where they meet with small groups of people and they work through a question. And the question is, what skills and experiences should a Newburyport student have by the time they graduate high school? What do they need? So we're literally having that conversation as a community right now in small and large groups. I think by now it's like 600 people have participated in these workshops. So we're identifying, from the grassroots of the community, what do we think is important?
Are there complaints? Because I imagine there are. I mean, people, I know there's people common ones I hear. I wish I learned about the stock market a little bit. I wish I learned about financial responsibility. I wish they really taught me how to leave a tip and drain that into my head rather than algebra, whatever.
Right. Yeah, and some of those things are appearing in courses. Kids are learning. They have the opportunity to take economics courses. They are getting a chance to figure that stuff out. Some of the really innovative stuff that they're doing is, I remember a class that was given an imaginary amount of money, and they had to invest in the stock market and follow their stocks to see whether they made a good or a bad investment. So those kinds of things are more practical things. Learning how to balance a checkbook, that's a very practical, important thing. The social emotional piece, learning when to say no and how to say no to something. Learning, what kind of an obligation do you have to the community that you live in? Learning about history and, equity among people and diversity and embracing all that stuff. Those are all things, that's their world. And the district should be helping prepare them by giving them opportunities to understand that stuff and experience it. So I agree with you. There are, that nuts and bolts stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny that, these are the things you talk about in your 30s after you've look back at it, those deals. It's just interesting. I think it's an interesting perspective. Again, Bruce Menin joining us. I'd like to end the show with you. I think we've done this the last 3 times you've been on, but we got to give a whole lot of credit to all the teachers who've worked so hard throughout this pandemic, right?
Yep. Yeah, they took some unfair shots from the community. And that was really disappointing to see that. During the pandemic, people were accusing them of making a secret agreement with the school committee to not bring kids back. And nothing really could have been farther from the truth. The teachers were partners right from the very beginning in the planning that the district did. We were actually one of the few districts that didn't initially have to reopen contract negotiations to figure out how to bring teachers and staff back. We were able to come up with a plan working collaboratively with the teachers. We did end up in impact bargaining because the school committee chose not to accept the plan. And it substituted one that changed the working conditions for the teachers. They had the right to reopen the contract. But that has been really good. The teachers have been extraordinary. We have some extraordinary teachers here in Newburyport, and it's really great to every now and again get the opportunity to attend an assembly or do it's just great to see how enthusiastic the kids are, how enthusiastic the teachers are. They were chomping at the bit to get kids back last year. So yeah, we have good reason to be proud of our district staff.
Absolutely. I know that makes life so much easier when teachers are working together with not only the kids, but with you guys in one big unit, right?
Yep. Yeah. And sort of the culture is changing. It used to be a lot more adversarial. I know because I've negotiated 6 contracts with the teachers, and it just simply isn't that way anymore because both sides, the central office and the teachers, they respect each other. They treat each other differently. We usually do adversarial bargaining. The last time we did interest-based bargaining, where we told the story of behind, an ask and understood each other better. It was by far the best contract, most reasonable, best contract negotiation I've done of the 6.
Yeah.
So that's a really good change of culture in the district.
Awesome. Let's hope for smooth negotiations as going forward, right?
Yeah, I think there will be.
Yeah,
I think there will be because, we essentially agree on what we need to talk about. And that's a really good start. Instead of swapping off, well, we'll talk about this if you talk about that, we have general consensus on, okay, these are the things we want to talk about. It's nice.
Nobody wins unless everybody wins. Very good. I like one final question. What's the one thing you want to see from the kids here as they push through into the winter? Is there one kind of a general theme, general change? I don't know. What's the one thing you want to see from this student body as we move through the year?
I want to see civic engagement. I want to see these kids understanding the dynamics of local government. I want these kids to understand how you petition to redress issues. I want them to be able to understand what an amazing, amazing world we live in. And there's just so much going on. I've always been a big advocate. It's never gone anywhere, but I think that we should teach kids how to bird watch in first and second grade, because it teaches you about observation, you're listening, you're looking for movement, you're hearing things, you're describing what you see, you're beginning to identify behaviors. It's just such a focusing activity. But we don't do that. But I'd love to see us do it, because I think it matches, the standards and the curriculum that we should be doing. But it's an amazing world. They have an opportunity. It's their world. I've always told my own kids, sorry for screwing things up so bad, but I trust that you've got the chops to fix the mess, and they will have a mess to fix. So.
Well, I love the way you think about that stuff, because I remember I took a lot of that away from the very first time we talked. I like the ideas, and there you go. There's some real world stuff you just talked about that be a part of the community, and that's the real world stuff that I was just talking about over dinner the other night. So there you go.
Exactly.
Bruce Menin, man, pleasure as always. I will let you start up that car. Thank you for staying buckled throughout the show.
I feel safe.
You're a busy man.
Thank you very much for inviting me on, Drew. It's always good to talk with you. The questions are really thoughtful, and it gives really an opportunity to respond in a way that hopefully is informative to you and the rest of the community. So thank you.
I hope people like it. Nothing better, nothing more casual than just talking from the car, right?
Yeah, right.
Bruce Menin, man. Safe travel.
Right. Take care. Bye-bye.
There you go, Bruce Menin with your catch up for the Newburyport School Committee. That's kind of the one I really like to do that to keep in touch. Parents, students, everybody can kind of get into that. And Bruce is always pretty free. He answers every question, and really no dodging anything, no beating around the bush, which I like about Bruce. And he's always cool to come on, even if he's on the road right there. First interview I think we've had where somebody's in the driver's seat, buckled up, he pulled over, and we did a nice little interview. So there you go, catching up with Bruce Menin at the Newburyport School Committee. My name is Drew Moholland. That was fun. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.